Welcome. I have the special honor of having such a wonderful sister in the podcast today with us. Internationally acclaimed artist Deva Padma. Welcome, sister, to this wonderful episode. Such an honor to have you here.
Thank you. Blessings.
Yes, likewise. Blessings to all of us. And before we start officially the episode, let's just take a couple breaths together. So I invite you to close your eyes if that feels safe for you, or just looking at one point right in front of you, just gazing. Let's take a deep inhale through the nose. Exhaling through the mouth, letting it go. Let's do it one more time. Deep inhale. And exhaling. Just come into normal breathing, allowing your body to soften the muscles of the face, the navel, the yoni, the throat. Just being here with you, present. Soy retake sarenina namakai kesi. Present to all that is. Saiko sorenina namakai kesi naka. Welcome this beautiful spirit that has taken this beautiful human form as our sister Deva Padma. We open up this wisdom to receive what you're meant to receive. For the highest good of all. In taking another deep inhale through the nose, just holding the breath and feeling the beautiful energy that we just created together, including you listening to this episode. And exhaling whenever you're ready. Inviting gentle movements in the body that feels good for you, stretching. And whenever you're ready, opening up the eyes if you close them. Welcome, sister. Thank you so much. And I like to share with everybody that is listening. I was sharing a little bit with Padma about her beautiful, beautiful tarot deck. If you're watching the video, it's called the Sacred She Tarot. And one of the things that I was sharing with her is that I had been looking for a tarot deck that would really resonate and feel good on my hands. And, I went from tarot deck to oracle cards and all these things. And some actually feel okay. But this deck, it just feels very special. From the very moment that I put it in my hands, and one of the most wonderful things about it that resonates so much with me and my work is that the actual deck talks and speaks with the elements too. That is just wonderful, wonderful. And so this deck was birthed through communication between many beings. Of course, our sister right here present with us, Padma, and I'm assuming some of her really good friends, which I'm super thankful for that. And thank you for bringing this to birth in this specific time.
This deck was conceived quite a long time ago, and I had to go through many changes before I was fully ripened to be able to manifest it in the form that it has taken. I began it in 2007 after having finished 2 other decks years back. One of them was the Osho Zen Tarot, and another one was the Tao Oracle. And the Osho Zen Tarot was devoted to the Zen guidance of Osho, the enlightened mystic. And the Tao Oracle is based on the I Ching. Many of your listeners may be familiar with the I Ching, but it is guidance from ancient Chinese Lao Tzu and the time of thousands of years back. the wisdom that is gleaned from observing nature and how the observations of nature are reflected within human life. So in having done the Zen Tarot, and then having done the Eastern visual and verbal communication in a new form for the I Ching, I thought, okay, I've done the West, I've done the East, I'm done with decks. Then in 2007, I realized that in having affiliated my work to these amazing guidance and wisdom of these two beings, I had not yet fully stood in my own boots and spoken from the wisdom gathered over the course of my own life. And at first, in realizing that, it was kind of scary and confronting because it felt safer to be affiliated with the wisdom of others. And because they were so revered and loved and known as being wise. Therefore, here I am, this, woman living in Australia who's like, whatever, who is she? What does she have to say? Why is anybody going to even be interested? And then I thought, you know what, Padma? You really, really need to buck up and share what you have gathered over the course of this lifetime, and probably over the course of many, many, many conduits of lifetimes that have fed into the stream that is now. And so I began working on it, but life presented many, many, many different changes, breast cancer and legal problems with neighbors. And then I had to have heart surgery and just a whole spectrum of things, facing death. And I resurrected the project many times, but when it finally began to kind of, she had flesh on her bones. The project was really beginning to kind of show her majesty to me. And the thing that was the most amazing was in recognizing that the beauty that was transpiring through the images that I was creating was a reflection of my own being. And that was so humbling. It is impossible to even describe how deeply it resonated. So I made a commitment. I made a promise that in creating the final images that needed to be done, I would consciously give myself over completely and utterly to birthing this work into the world, whatever it's going to take, whatever the walk is I'm going to have to walk, if I'm going to have to, cross over my own personal line in terms of like, I live in nature, I like privacy, my life is blissful and quiet with my partner. But if I have to talk with people in the corporate world or whatever, I'm going to do it. This baby needs to be born. And so that's the sacred she. She's here. She just got born a couple of weeks ago.
Yes.
And what is happening is there's this kind of, when you throw your hands in the air, the card in the deck that's called gratitude really sums it up so beautifully, because it's a moment of ecstatic opening. It's also a moment of deep inward turning. And it's prayerful and it's joyful all at the same time. I'm so, so grateful to the world, to existence, for letting me live long enough to experience this, and to women and men like yourself who are very, very tuned into the realms that are beyond what we see, nevertheless so important to our existence.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. Thank you. I want to take a time to just honor your whole journey and everything that led up to this creation and your courage of just going for it, and also that courage to surrender. One of my teachers, my voice teacher, my beautiful sister Dominique Suniga, says empty, empty, so creation can come through you.
Yes.
And that's what you did, sister, and it's felt so deeply in this beautiful deck that just speaks with so much love, so much reverence too. And not just that, I feel whenever I'm holding the deck in the morning, because most days in the morning after I meditate, I just hold it, put it on my heart, put it in my third eye, and it's like the elements are joyful, speaking and dancing. And there's something so beautiful about just getting that one card and seeing the element and the picture and like the space in between the words and the space in between like every single detail of the art. It's like, whoa.
Yeah, I know. It's like that for me too. Oh my God, it's singing.
Yeah.
So cool.
Yeah.
It's just so cool. Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm so getting chills in my crown right now, and my heart is expanding so much. It's a what a precious gift that
Yeah.
you have given us. So I thank you for that. And again, like your journey to get into this and you saying, it's time for me to like put my journey into this.
Yeah.
And wow, that's powerful. That's very powerful.
Yeah, it is. It is.
Mm.
Yeah. The thing that happens for me now is, although my name is on it and all of that, that's like the way the world works. There has to be a person attributed to the creation of it, of anything really. However, I have to say that this was created through me. I have been gifted with certain abilities in this lifetime that have to do with creating imagery that speaks to people, that images that touch the heart. I've exhibited paintings all over the world. I've been affiliated with Buddhist imagery for a long, long time, and Tibetan Buddhist imagery in particular. But Arabic, you name it, I've really kind of indulged in the beauty of different spiritual traditions and their art and their symbolism. But the realization with the sacred Shi Tarot that all of those different elements that have come through this life, like the spices and the veggies and the things that you add into the soup pot, and you're stirring and you're adding a little more, this needs a little bit more salt, needs something really, really to bang you on the head with some pepper in there. And you do this thing. And then eventually when you taste it, you realize that a magic has occurred within that pot, that maybe it was the number of times you stirred. Who knows? Maybe it's because your cat was sitting on the kitchen counter while you were stirring. Who knows? Maybe because the sun came out or it rained. Who knows? But something happened in the chemistry, in the timing, that was also a calling from the outside saying, yes, now it's the time to serve this up. And I had it to offer. It was ready. And so it was given. And you and all the beloveds out there that are feeling that there is nourishment and support and kindness in imbibing this, then a full circle is complete. And we can together all be made healthier, wealthier, and wiser through it in many, many ways. I feel as though it is a profound time because our world is starving for this kind of banquet
Yes.
where we can all come to the table, whether we have something to bring or we come with empty hands. But there is a space for every single one of us to be served and to sit and be equal at the abundant table of life, the giving of life. Because in all that is being stripped away and in all that is being torn down now, and in all the sorrow and despair, there is immense wisdom to be learned through this time.
Absolutely.
So huge, such a huge opportunity. And I think that we need to not run from feeling diminished. I think we need to feel stripped back by being diminished and ready to be uplifted, made lighter, able to grow wings.
Yeah.
Because so much has been let go of.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
You know?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
I feel that so deeply. There is something, of course, witnessing and feeling very deeply what's happening right now in our planet. It's not very easy. And having so much compassion to all the brothers and sisters, they're like highly touched, and the rest of us, they're in a way also, we are highly touched. And I really believe that by coming together, by one simple act, can help us remember the unity and the deep connection that we all hold and have always had. And I really believe that something as deep and also as simple and as this deck, as her, can also help us. And it really, like that imagery, this imagery, the first one, it's like, whoa. It's like, yes, there's just such a deep like code of remembrance just by looking at her. And like, who cares if, like, it doesn't even matter in a way, like your skin, your background, your age, like whatever it is you think you are, right? But just like by simply touching the energies that came through you, through your experiences, right? And where, like you were saying, in your own womb, just being birthed and touched and loved with like your essence, and then the purity of existence, that can create so much shift. And at times as humans, it's like to make things very difficult. But in reality, just sitting with something like this, feeling that energy, can help us step back into the heart space.
Yes, you're so right. We live in a world that has become very complicated in many ways, where there is so much input and our minds are so busy trying to sort things out and make sense of this and that all of a sudden is incredibly confusing, or we ask why and what and when. And we need to create space in our lives in an ongoing way, just as when breath takes the in and the out in order to be breath. If it's one or the other, it's not breath. Stop. Yeah. There has to be that flow. And I think that something like the sacred chi that is bringing in a moment of reflection, it creates a kind of a pause whereby you're taking something in, but you're also letting something go. And it is providing it's kind of like a detour. It provides a kind, you're driving along on the highway of your life, you're getting from A to B. And the sacred chi is an example of something that kind of all of a sudden it diverts you off the side of the road. And you're surrounded by trees. You unroll the window, you can hear bird song. You feel, yourself slowing down for a moment. And there's peace there. And then you can turn the engine back on and get going again. But it's like we need these periods of pause whereby we are able to experience our being apart from our doing. So that we begin to acknowledge, this is what self-awareness is. It's the acknowledgement of the fullness of what your beingness is. And it is way past what you can see or think or know. It's what ties you in, connects you up with everything that exists. It's one big circle. Every ant, butterfly, tree, cat, dog, neighbor, politician, you name it, we are one.
Yeah.
And the deck, in its own fun and lovely and incredibly meaningful way, has imagery that represents all these facets. So that if you were to pull the card of resistance, stone wall, arms across the chest, legs apart, you ain't gonna get past me, baby. That space.
Yeah.
I know that space. I know it from the outside, but I've also experienced it within myself. Nobody gets past this. This is where I draw the line, And it's something to acknowledge, not just where you can put the blame, but in terms of acknowledging that energy within your own spectrum, your own DNA dance has been there.
Yes.
Otherwise, you wouldn't be able to recognize it.
Yeah.
So every card has a message. And the integrity in the message is that it is profoundly grounded in sincere reflecting upon this or that quality as it resonates in human life.
Wow. Like literally the cycles that we go through in and out, just to
In
come
and
back
out.
to the remembrance of
In
the
and out.
oneness. Wow. I feel so much in the space of where we pause the words. I feel like there's so much coming through just by simply being in each other's presence and speaking about her. And it's really wonderful. And I would like to just take a little moment, and I invite you also, for all of you that are listening or watching the video, to let's just take a little moment to honor the cycles around us, within us, and also the connection that we all share. What a beautiful remembrance that we're not alone. And that's one of the things also I feel with the Sacred She Tarot, that we've never been alone. And to me, it's really like activating this remembrance within us, and also clearing the channels to feel each other, to hold each other, even when perhaps in this existence we will never meet somebody that lives across the world. But that doesn't mean that we're not connected, but just remembering that. It's so wonderful. Thank you. I love to honor also the elements here. The elements are just such a, almost like the cherry on top of the sundae. Is they're just divine, and that not many people really can do it like this. And of course, like the energies, she just wanted to come through like that. But it's phenomenal, and I so recommend that if you have been considering getting in touch with the elements within yourself, but also around you, and you're trying to rediscover that part of you, I mean, this is such a perfect, beautiful guide and space holder for that. It's wonderful. It's so wonderful. Could you tell us a little bit, sister, how did that come through with the elements?
When I recognized that the deck needed to not be dependent upon traditional symbolism, like what in most tarot decks is like, wands or swords or cups, chalices, pentacles. I wanted to kind of carve through to reach another place whereby people could grasp the meaning through something more primary and less cerebral. And by primary, I meant elemental. It's like, okay, those symbols that, some people love those symbols, and it's beautiful. I've loved tarot forever and loved the symbolism of it. But I wanted to make this symbolism something that was no longer dependent upon signs and translating them into this or that, but something so basic. It is basic to our bodies, and it's basic to our experience of, the climate and the way the world works. So I thought, okay, this deck needs to be elemental, and rather than a traditional minor arcana and a major arcana, which are wonderful traditions. And as you know, in the sacred chi, I honor very much the deck created by Pamela Coleman Smith, the Rider-Waite deck, which is the classic beloved tarot, and Lady Frida Harris, and the extraordinary art that she created for the Crowley Thoth. And I wanted to acknowledge those two women and their creations, and acknowledge the beauty of the symbolism that they created. But I wanted to tuck myself in the middle between those two divine creators and say, and now, girls, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to assign colors to the elements, and the 5 chapters of this tarot will be no longer major or minor or numbered as a certain point in the numbering system. And then you have pages, knights, queens, and kings. We're going to do away with all of that, and we're just going to have the numerical system. Each minor suit, number 1 would be what is traditionally the ace. The 14 would be traditionally the king. They're all equal. One is no more important than the other. And in what is traditionally the major arcana, the Fool being what is traditionally the beginning of the major arcana. In nearly all decks, the Fool is shown as leaping off a cliff or falling off a cliff or stepping off a cliff. In this deck, it is a feminine figure, and she is ready to take off and rise up rather than dropping down. And so the journey is one of uplift. And as you can see on that card, she is above the clouds. She's not levitating. She is supported by the midpoint between what is below and what she is heading into, which is filled with light. Her wings are very powerful. It takes time to develop wings that are that broad. And every color in the rainbow is on her feathers. So as feminine and fragile as she might appear, she is a force. She has developed into an extraordinary inner strength that can take her on her flight through anything, but she will always go higher. Always. And that's the beginning of this deck.
Whoa.
Yeah. Yeah. And you can be sure that in creating a tarot deck, the card that you do for the Fool, it's like, for so long, it was like, what are the elements that need to really be portrayed for this deck? What is it? What is it? And that was one of the last images that I worked on. And it was like, yes. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Because it says what it needs to say, because it's a commencement and it's glorious.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's so much wisdom. There's so much wisdom, even when you're speaking about her in different kind of cards and like, like suits or like the elements, right? Like I feel so deeply her coming through in her guidance, and and it's like the heart opening. Wow. Which is again, this is something that as humans we have learned to close the heart space, and unless in my journey it was very challenging to open it up after everything that I went through. And just like a lot of us, right, it's we feel that it's much easier to just close the heart to not be hurt. And then we're closing all this amazing wisdom that comes through the heart space, through our ancestors, like the wisdom keepers, the elders, like our planet herself, and beyond time and space. And I feel so much that the energies of this tarot deck is really about also coming back to your own wisdom. Yes. And tapping into your own power, understanding the sacredness of that we carry as women, right? Of course, men too, but I feel I resonate so much with it because I'm having this female experience, this empowerment that has been going on for years in my work, and dedicating just to hold sisters and to guide them into their own power. And it's almost like this is like, yes, here you go. Yeah. Like you can remember too.
Yes. And it's very personal. People often think of tarot as going to a reader who reads cards for you, but this is actually very intimate deck. It really is. It is a mirror for you to be able to perceive aspects of your own beingness, because I am you. We may have walked very different walks, but essentially we are the same. We are one. Yes. And so in having created it, I have gone to the ends of the earth, if you like, to resource the imagery that feels like it's truthful. Some of it is painful. but it's truthful and it has wisdom in it.
Yes.
And then when it came time to write the text, and I reached out to friends and fellow kindred spirits in life, I knew that it needed to not be just one voice. It needed to be a chorus of voices. It needed to be women and men. It needed to be a choir, all singing the same. Like when you hear the birds in the morning, there's no one bird that is better than another. They're all just
Yeah.
out there clucking and tweeting and cackling and doing it all together. And it's good morning. And so I very much wanted it to have that sort of quality. And whether it's a crow or a hummingbird or a bluebird of happiness makes no difference. It's perfect.
Mm.
I reached out for some of the cards that are considered difficult or challenging. I wanted to make sure that what I wrote was grounded in wisdom of today from people who are dealing with the challenges of today. For example, a couple of the cards, I consulted with an Italian friend of mine, Avical Costantino. He is a man who deals with trauma and with people who are dealing with deep and painful repression that they need to break out of. And so the card of blame and the card of
Mm.
repression, his words of wisdom are there. And I asked, please, no quotes from your teachers or your guru or Buddha or whatever. Please speak from your own life experience, because that will have value for others. Another friend who at the time was in the Ukraine, when I wrote and said, please, can you please provide me with some guidance for the card of grief? And he was in Ukraine, working with people who were in a war zone, helping them to learn how to reflect and find inner peace as they were losing everything. And the image of the profile of a face with the tears falling, and those tears are falling onto a single red flower that is blossoming and watered by those tears. And grief is an atmosphere that exists also. It is when you can't see your way clear of there's so much fog, there's so much uncertainty and fragility and vulnerability. And the recognition of that space, and whether you are in that space now or whether you have experienced it in the past or whether you will experience it in the future or whether someone you know is in it now, it is a space where we must give space for it to be felt, for it to be honored, for the vulnerability to go so, so deeply and then rise up as a newfound strength in the heart.
Wow, like the depth of that, of I'm honoring so much your whole process for this. And also the humility of the ones that you reached out to, just to be pure and their own experiences and how they could express themselves, and because of what they're living, right, and what they're witnessing. And it's not easy to witness grief. It's not easy to witness somebody else suffering, because it's also felt in us very deeply. And that it felt so much. It felt so much. And I also feel it's also the power that comes through that, because of this collaboration of others too, like tapping into the field of themselves and their own experiences, not just from one particular portal as you, but through like many of them. And yes, exactly. And I truly believe that when we get to share part of our story, that something gets ignited of somebody else. If you're somebody else, somebody's teacher, and then you share a story that somebody really resonates with, that is part of their personal story, then it's almost like, there's no like this pedestal. It's like we're equal. We're still humans, regardless of what we're experiencing, what we do for a living. And that is powerful. And coming together, everybody that came together to bring such a magical little being into this planet at this moment in time, because it was just available November 7th. It's like, bam, here's a little portal, a remembrance of your hearts, of like so many brothers and sisters that came together that have experienced many things that you are experiences or will experience. And wow, that is just,
it's a rainbow. It's a full spectrum.
yeah,
It sure is.
yeah, wow. It's perfect as she is. It's perfect as she is. And I love to just go back into the sacred wisdom, because this, like I said, when I hold her in my hands in the morning, I'm connecting with something much deeper than me, to go beyond what I believe it's me, and allow something greater to come through, to be expressed in the form of the card, and also what the card speaks. And I think that is something so sacred as women to remember, that we are portals, and there's this sacred wisdom within us, and this power that even if it was repressed or like pushed aside or taken away, however we want to say it, it's still there. And I really believe that it's also our birthright to go back to that, to really embrace our power. And a lot of times we're paying so much money to do that, when it's as simple as like sitting with yourself and connecting. In which way you connect, perhaps it's through the breath or through a little prayer, and holding something with intention. And then this being that was also birthed with magical intentions.
Yes. Intention is a very favorite word of mine. It is bringing a kind of, it's a self-passion. Intention is not flying all over the place. It's very, very clearly articulated through the being, so that it is embracing fully whatever it is that it is aimed toward. In the deck, the card of intention is, she is riding very swiftly on a horse, the horse's power. She's barefoot. She's totally capable of walking fully and completely on the ground. But right now she's in full speed on this amazing horse. She has a bow and arrow, and the bow is pulled all the way back, but there's no point on the arrow. The tip of the arrow is a red rose, and she is shooting the rose of love toward wherever she aims that bow, and she is moving with such strength. To me, that's the essence of intention. If it is done with love, truly and deeply felt, it can change the world.
Yes. Yes. 1,000%, 1,000%. And that is, I think, the key. I feel that is also the key that is taking us into this inner journey, personally and collectively, to just remember that the power of love, and so of our hearts. And my experience of the heart is not how we see it as the physical heart or just the chakra, but it just goes beyond where, like, again, our ancestors come through, the elements come through, and there's like all this like keys of magical wisdom that has been here for ages that we can just like grab it and accept it. And that is such an act of self-love. And by doing that, in my experience, and what I believe is that we're also doing a service to the rest of us and collectively, because again, we're not separate. Even though there's this physical body here, there's a physical body over there, and all these other shapes and forms. We are unity. And the more that we come back to that, the more that we can really allow the shift that we want to happen in this planet to happen and take form.
We are vibrations. We think that we're solid, but we're actually not. We're actually more music than anything else. We are vibrations. And as the let's call it fine tuning occurs within us, as we become more self-aware, there's a shift in our vibration, our tuning fork, whatever you want to call it, and that synchronizes and moves in tandem with other vibrations, and the whole level of the sound, if you like, rises, becomes more fine, becomes more heavenly. And this makes me think of in Egyptian symbolism, back in the ancient iconography of the beautiful civilization of Egypt, the goddess Nut is depicted as the night sky. Her body is arched over the world. It is very dark blue, blue-black, and she's covered with stars. And I have so often referred to and loved that image, because for me, in a kind of a way, it represents the divine feminine most beautifully, because she is the heavens. She is, and I'm not talking about like archangels or any of that. I'm talking about the bowl of existence is like a giant womb. It's like a giant female holding space in which all of the stars move, the galaxies spin. There's everything you can imagine is happening there, and nothing is happening there, all at the same time. And yet she holds it all. She is the magnificence of the empty and the everything contained, held, revered. And the divine feminine has no polarity, has no gender. We use the terminology of the feminine because it comes most perfectly as symbolic of the womb that is the holder of life. And so I think the more we can remember, whether we are in a male body or a female body, or a body that is transitioning because we want to be identified with some other one, but the bodily form is not what the divine feminine is addressing. What the divine feminine is calling forth is the deep wisdom that resonates and sees from the eyes of the heart and speaks with the authority of divine, loving, generous truth. And from there, as we recognize that more fully, we become compassionate. We become kind. We love ourselves, and therefore we love the world.
So much truth and wisdom. And what a lovely space to remember. What a lovely space to know that is there within us all. We can always come back, and always come back to that. It's always been there, will never go away. And that's one of the beautiful things about being human and experiencing that, and going back into that and having your own human experience through that as well. And again, knowing that when you suffer, I also suffer. That when I laugh, you also laugh. And how can we hold those energies to know that we're not alone, and that I'm here as you as well? And anything that resonates, anything that comes through, anything that is seen about you, for example, sister, or anything that is seen about me that resonates with somebody else, is because it's in you. It's in you, and you see that through us, you hear it through us, and it's not like we're better than you or anything. It's just there for you. It's passing through exactly for you at the moment it needs to pass through. So then you can be like, feel it in yourself, like, that's in me too. And it's something, again, that it's just, I feel that the moment that we let go and we can trust and be on the flow, attuning, like you said, our instrument to the flow of life is just there. And we know our brothers and sisters are suffering right now on the other side of the world, because the war, that's also happening here. And what can we do as somebody that is not there physically? How about we love through that space? How about we feel that compassion and we feel that pain and the grief, and at the same time we hold that space like the divine feminine. We hold that space with love, without judging, without saying this and this, we're going to divide it. We hold it, and we're there because also I'm you, you're me.
Yes. Yes.
Thank you for such a beautiful portal of remembrance through something that is just, when we look at a deck of cards, right, this just looks so simple, right? It's like very simple. It fits so perfectly in the hands, yet it contains so much power.
Yeah, it's a treasure trove.
Yes.
Yeah, I know.
Yes.
Every one of them. These, I did it with the full moon on the back, because I thought, okay, the moon is the perfect symbol of reflecting, because the moon doesn't have light of its own. It merely reflects the light from the sun. So this deck is a deck for reflecting upon whatever it is that it is showing and sharing. And I think that in this time that we are all living in, this time of tremendous transition on the planet, so many things are changing, and many things will disappear altogether. Animal species and plants and so forth that are disappearing or evolving into becoming something else. And we're witness to a lot of that. And so that in the letting go, there is also the need to stay open rather than shut down out of fearfulness, to experience the letting go as the hands open, and as one thing is dropped away, something else can be received. You know, when we see, you know, in the tradition of Buddhism, for example, when the monks are walking with a bowl into a village, you know, and the symbol of the Buddha with the empty bowl, the bowl represents whatever is going to drop into that bowl is what is gifted to me today. It may be, you know, a 5-course meal. It may be a grain of rice. It may be nothing at all. But whatever it is, its existence's way of nourishing me today.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that the more we can filter out the things that feel as though they do not nourish us, that they somehow are draining or creating a kind of heaviness, it's good to remember discerning wisdom that provides a filtering out of what is not essential to the well-being in the moment, so that we learn to recognize we're not closing our eyes or our hearts, but we're just clearing the way so that our being can remain centered as we move through the life without this way, that way, grabbing and grasping and searching for external nourishment from all sorts of sources that have nothing to do with the place where the true nourishment comes from, which is the openness to existence, with the heart open like a window to just breathe in and out what is offered for today, whether it's the grain of rice or nothing at all, or a 10-course meal. It was 5-course, now it's 10-course. You know.
Yeah. Wow. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Not just for this wonderful gift that you have given us all, but just for you and your experiences and your journey that I'm sure, like you share a little bit, it was not very easy at all. And it moved you through many layers, you know, perhaps even just like taking off a lot of layers too, that just to come back into that gets felt, that is felt very deeply in this beautiful deck. And it's such an honor to be in your presence and feel your energies and how humble you are and all the wisdom that comes through you, that I trust very deeply that wisdom that is also encoded in this deck will reach the ones that need to be reached at this moment. And when it does, so they can come back into their remembrance of themselves.
Thank you, sweetheart.
Thank you, sister.
Yeah.
And thank you so much to all of you that tapped in to this wonderful transmission. And I also trusted you receive what you're meant to receive. And thank you. Thank you for your journey, whatever it is that you are in your journey. And again, knowing that even on those spaces that feel so dark and heavy, you're still being held. You're so being held by all of us. And yes, beyond time and space. So honoring whatever it is that you are, honoring where you have been, where you will be, and the space where we are everything and nothing at the same time. Thank you so much, everybody.
Thank
We will
you.
see you next time,
Thank you. Thank
sister.
you. Thank you. Blessed be all you sacred she's. Much love, much gratitude.
Thank you. Likewise.